Somewhere beneath the surface of the ocean, there is a world where sharks patrol the darkness. Turtles travel thousands of miles. Manta rays fly through the water, and entire underwater cities burst with colors so bright they seem almost impossible to be real. But none of this is the most surprising part. The most surprising part is that so much of this world depends on something incredibly small. Something that covers only around 0.1% of the ocean, yet provides a home for approximately 25% of all marine life. And here is the question: how can something so small support such an enormous world? The answer is hidden beneath the waves. And to understand it, we have to start with the animals that depend on it. A young fish enters the ocean, and immediately it enters a dangerous world. Predators are everywhere. In the open ocean, there may be nowhere to hide. But inside a coral reef, the entire situation changes. Suddenly, there are cracks, tunnels, caves, and thousands of places to disappear. The reef becomes a nursery, a shelter, a feeding ground, a hunting ground. And for many animals, the difference between a healthy reef and a damaged reef can be the difference between life and death. This is why coral reefs are so much more than beautiful underwater scenery. They are one of the most important habitats in the ocean, and some of their visitors are extraordinary. Sea turtles can travel thousands of miles across the open ocean, moving between feeding grounds, nesting beaches, seagrass meadows, and coral reefs. Some can return to the same regions where they were born, navigating across enormous distances through a world with no roads, no signs, and no obvious landmarks. A coral reef may be only one stop on a turtle's journey, but it can be an incredibly important one. Then there are manta rays. These animals can grow several meters across, making them some of the largest creatures to visit reef ecosystems. They can look like birds flying underwater, but the strangest thing about them is what they eat. Despite their enormous size, manta rays feed on tiny plankton. They glide through the ocean with their mouths open, filtering microscopic life from the water. An animal the size of a small car, surviving on creatures almost too small to see. And sometimes, even these ocean giants depend on something smaller. At cleaning stations, small fish remove parasites from the bodies of manta rays. The manta gets cleaned. The fish get food. The ocean is full of relationships like this. Even the giants depend on the tiny. And then there are sharks. For hundreds of millions of years, sharks have been moving through the world's oceans. They are often portrayed as monsters, but in a healthy ecosystem, predators are essential. Sharks help shape the behavior and populations of other animals. They are part of the balance between predator and prey. A healthy ocean is not an ocean without sharks. It is an ocean where the entire food web is still functioning. And this brings us back to the reef. Because the reef is not just a place where animals happen to live. It is part of the system that allows this entire world to exist. But coral reefs are not new. They are ancient survivors. Around 66 million years ago, a massive asteroid struck Earth. The impact helped cause one of the greatest mass extinctions in the history of the planet. Around 3/4 of Earth's species disappeared. The dinosaurs were gone. Coral reefs suffered enormous losses too. But some coral lineages survived. And eventually, over a very long period of time, reefs began to recover. The creatures that built these ecosystems had survived one of the greatest disasters Earth had ever experienced, and they continued building, one generation after another. Today, one of the most important regions in this story is the Coral Triangle. It contains approximately 76% of the world's known coral species. This region is one of the greatest centers of marine biodiversity on Earth. Fish, turtles, sharks, manta rays, crabs, shrimp, and countless other animals all depend on the extraordinary richness of these waters. But the reef's power depends on a delicate relationship. Inside many corals live microscopic algae. The coral provides a home. The algae use sunlight to produce energy, and the coral receives some of that energy. It is a partnership that helps power the reef. But when the ocean becomes too warm, the partnership can break. The coral becomes stressed, the algae leave, and the coral turns white. This is coral bleaching. The coral is not necessarily dead immediately, but it has lost an important source of energy. If the heat continues for too long, the coral can starve and die. And this is where the answer to our original question begins to become clear. The reef is important not because coral itself is large. Coral is important because it creates a place where thousands of other species can survive. When the coral dies, the entire neighborhood can begin to change. Young fish lose shelter. Animals lose feeding grounds. The structure that supports the ecosystem begins to disappear. But there is a surprising possibility. Not every coral reacts to heat in exactly the same way. Some corals are naturally more tolerant of high temperatures. Scientists are studying these tougher corals, sometimes called supercorals. They are not invincible. They cannot magically stop the ocean from warming, but they may have a better chance of surviving extreme heat, and they could potentially help scientists restore damaged reefs. The future of coral may depend on the survivors, but coral reefs are connected to something even larger than the animals living on them. Far away from the reef, microscopic organisms called phytoplankton drift through the ocean. They are almost invisible. But together, ocean organisms produce roughly half of the oxygen generated on Earth. So while a turtle swims over a reef, while a manta ray filters tiny organisms from the water, and while a shark disappears into the blue, microscopic life in the ocean is helping power the atmosphere around us. And when sunlight disappears completely, the ocean becomes even stranger. In the deep sea, some animals create their own light, bioluminescence. Some use it to attract prey. Some use it to confuse predators. Some use it to communicate. In a world without sunlight, life creates its own stars. But the importance of coral reefs does not end with animals. It reaches all the way to human civilization. Take the Maldives. More than 1,000 low-lying islands make up this extraordinary country. The islands are built on coral atolls, and the surrounding reefs help create and protect them. But these islands are extremely low above sea level. As the ocean rises, their future becomes increasingly uncertain. The Maldives is not guaranteed to disappear on one specific date. But rising sea levels, erosion, flooding, and damaged coral reefs could make some islands increasingly difficult to live on during this century. The reef is not simply beneath the island. It is part of the reason the island exists. And coral reefs are also part of a huge global economy. They support fisheries, tourism, jobs, coastal communities, and food supplies. To one person, a coral reef may be a beautiful place to visit. To another, it may provide their income. To another, their food. And to another, protection from the ocean. But while the ocean gives life to billions of creatures, humans are also filling it with waste. More than 11 million tons of plastic enter the ocean every year. Plastic can be swallowed by turtles. It can trap marine animals. It can damage coral, and it can break apart into microplastics. The ocean does not make plastic disappear. It moves it, breaks it apart, and spreads it through ecosystems. A piece of plastic thrown away on land can eventually end up inside an ocean animal thousands of kilometers away. And now, we can finally answer the question from the beginning. How can something covering only 0.1% of the ocean support 25% of marine life? Because a coral reef is not just a place. It is a foundation. It creates shelter. It provides feeding grounds. It gives young animals somewhere to grow. It supports predators and prey. It helps protect islands. It supports economies. And it connects thousands of species into one enormous living system. Corals survived the dinosaurs. They survived mass extinctions. They have been building ecosystems for hundreds of millions of years. But now, the ocean is changing. The water is warming. The reefs are bleaching. Plastic is spreading. And an ancient ecosystem is being pushed to its limits. The ocean is enormous. But some of its most important life depends on something incredibly small. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of the coral reef. The future of an entire world does not always depend on the biggest animals. Sometimes, it depends on the smallest things. Because the answer to the question we started with is not that coral reefs are big, it is that the world around them is.